Detail coming in on science latest buy. In the meantime, let's shift focus to the tea market. We've only been talking agri-commodities today, haven't we? Sri Lanka, remember, has been in a crisis, and we understand that that's going to turn out to be a big opportunity for India, actually. In fact, Sri Lanka is a major player in the global market, so trying to tap this global market is going to be India's big win. So let's try and understand really what does this glut in Sri Lanka really mean for India. We have with us Azam Monem, who is the executive director at McLeod Russel, joining in on the show. And we also have with us Prabhat Kamal Bezboruah, who is the chairman at the Tea Board of India, also joining in on the show right now. Gentlemen, good morning. Good to have you on the show this morning. Prabhat, if I could really start off with you, help us understand what really does this Sri Lanka opportunity really mean for India? The fact that Sri Lanka is a major player in the global tea market, given the ongoing crisis, how can India really capture from this or benefit from this?
I'd like to start out by saying that my term as chairman Tea Board ended in February, so I'm not chairman Tea Board anymore.
We'll make that correction right away.
Right. So, we shouldn't look at someone else's misfortunes as an opportunity, but the world of business and international commerce and all is it's quite a ruthless kind of world. So, in general, when a vacuum is created somewhere, somebody always steps in to fill up that vacuum. So in the sense that Sri Lanka is the largest producer of orthodox tea in the world and also the largest exporter of the same. India is one of its main competitors. I suppose we can look at it as some kind of an opportunity, but I would like to temper the optimism with the facts that many of the major orthodox markets are also in some kind of turmoil. And unless we are able to work out an effective and robust payment and probably logistics regime, I don't think we'll be able to take major advantage of it. But as I started out by saying, when there is a vacuum and there's a shortage of something in an international scenario, some other players have the opportunity to step in to fill the gap. Yeah.
So let's talk to one of those players then. Azam, wanted to understand, hi, morning firstly, what kind of an opportunity does this really spell for you at McLeod Russel?
Good morning. Well, firstly, if you take the India perspective, as Prabhat said, there is an opportunity, but the fact is we don't have the product readily available. So, of course, McLeod Russel is a small player in the orthodox market. We can scale up production, but there are limitations to the scaling up as well. So, for instance, if you look at Sri Lankan market, at their peak, they had made about 2013, I think, they had made 340 million kilos of orthodox. Now, that's a large weight. Subsequently, they've declined to 270. And now from latest reports and trends, we find that there will be a decline of about 18 to 20%. So there is a gap, there is a large gap, but who is there to fulfill? India is a huge domestic market, and much of us are looking at that opportunity because the cost of producing orthodox is almost 24, 25 rupees additional to what you would get CDC. However, those producers and we ourselves are taking a bold step to make a switchover at the earliest. Now, there are opportunities. Sri Lanka is a large exporter to Russia and Iran, which matches our portfolio in India as well. So there is an opportunity. They are also large exporters to Iraq, Libya, Turkey. So those are new markets which can open up opportunities. But in order to sustain this, this is an opportunity to enter the market. And how do you sustain it in the longer term? So here, if we link ourselves with certain schemes that were there available with the government, and that can actually, in the short term, enhance production of orthodox. And with a sunset clause for 3 or 5 years, and you capture those markets, and then you're on your way to go. So in the overall Indian context, yes, a little push from tea board and all in incentivizing this production will have a great impact, not only in capturing the export markets, where our targets are also quite ambitious of 400 million in the next 5-8 years, but also it will stabilize the domestic market, which currently is completely polarized between a plain tea and a good quality tea. So there are these opportunities and dynamics within the market, which I think can come good if we are able to utilize on this. But a lot of producers, my producer friends, are switching over from orthodox to CTC, unfortunately, because orthodox is so expensive to produce. And CTC, even though it may not be as remunerative, but it's a ready seller, it keeps your cash flows going. So here is a huge opportunity, and I would really look at all my producer friends in India to scale up its orthodox production from 120 million, which is the current last year's production, to at least another 40-50 million. And you're good to go with some of these markets of Middle East, CIS. Yes, there are issues. These are not the comfort zone markets. But recently, we've seen payments are coming in from Iran, payments are coming in from Russia. So there are arrangements which are there. I think the Indian government with RBI is looking very strongly at making some new arrangements. And so that's it.
Yeah, so Mr. Bezboruah, would you agree that some sort of an impetus, some sort of a thrust or a push from the tea board as well is necessary in order to help fill that gap, and also walk us through the outlook on the current global as well as local pricing trends?
The government had an orthodox subsidy in place for many years. Over that period, the subsidy didn't really help too much, excepting in 2019, when we recorded record exports of 255 million kilos. Other than that, the schemes were evaluated and found to be not very successful. Then, as a result of that, in response to that, the government has actually curtailed those schemes. But I would tend to agree with Azam Monem that now the scenario is that there is a vacuum, and if there were availability of orthodox teas in India, it would have been likely that we would have been able to step into that vacuum. And the lack of availability of orthodox might be a problem. Obviously, if you don't have the product to sell, how can you aspire to fill up a vacuum? You cannot unless you have the goods. So, in a way, what Azam Monem says is correct. The situation, the ground realities have changed. So, perhaps the government could step in a very limited way right now, I suppose. And he was talking about a 3-5 year sunset clause. Maybe they could even look at something which is a one-time kind of thing for 1 year, while the industry, claws its way back into that orthodox export space. Maybe they could do that. The government is basically, I would say that the word subsidies is kind of an anathema to governments which work towards liberalizing the economy and stuff like that. So we shouldn't maybe we shouldn't really rely too much on the government. But on the other hand, I do agree with Azam Monem that this is one point in the scenario that this is the right point to come in with some kind of a subsidy right now for orthodox manufacture. As far as global pricing trends are concerned, last year was one of the worst years as far as the international tea market was concerned, because Kenya was laboring under huge carry forward surplus. Indian crop rebounded from 2020, but it was still much lower than 2019. And demand, unfortunately, hasn't kept pace with the supply trends. So tea prices were quite soft throughout the year and throughout all markets practically. And we were hoping that things would improve this year, but with the recession, with the receding trends of COVID in the world. But as you know, now there's some geopolitical menaces that have been taking place in certain areas in the world, and these are tea consuming countries, tea importing countries, and more
Sure.
importantly, that whole area is very important for logistics, tea
Right.
logistics. So I don't see any major beneficial trends this year either.
Mr. Monem, what about additional inquiries coming in? Which countries are you seeing demand from?
Oh, I think additional inquiries are there. Russia, in particular, I think we're seeing that. Iran is pretty active, as we see beneath the surface. They're very active, and goods are moving there. So these two are there. But as Prabhat says, that there's not enough for us to fill that vacuum. So that is there. Global prices, if you ask me, they've started looking up a little bit because there have been certain market interventions in Kenya, keeping certain base prices and floor prices. So that has helped move up the market in a situation. It's been a trigger because Kenya is also going through a bit of a shortfall in crop and less rain. So it's been a trigger, and global markets are poised to recover, I'm hoping. Indian markets here, I think we've seen that, on the back of the Sri Lankan thing and the Russian demand, in the last 2 weeks, orthodox prices have gone up, and domestic CTC prices have been stable and higher. But there's a correction inevitable when supply lines increase in the next month for CTCs. But orthodox is a welcome. I only hope that we have enough produce, and that's why I say that we need an impetus for everyone to just take a step back and rethink, because there is a movement, a reverse movement from orthodox to CTC. That's dangerous for Indian exports in the longer term. McLeod Russel is not, I think we are well hedged with our production lines. There are plans to increase the orthodox, but it'll happen gradually. Orthodox is in short supply in the world markets. Not everybody can fill in. Sri Lankan crisis is not something which is permanent. They will overcome weather patterns, etc. But in what we see is that it's been triggered by a lack of inputs, mainly fertilizer over last year, which has impacted crops. Going forward, recovery is not depending on weather, but recovery doesn't seem quick enough when your inputs are on the decline. So these are moments of opportunity that do surface, because India is too focused on the domestic market, and we need to really have the caliber to think beyond that.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining in. Appreciate your time. That's giving us an overview entirely as to how India can really plug the global tea supply gap owing to the crisis in Sri Lanka.